Hey, what's going on, guys? ETP coming at you guys with another video today, and I have officially released my 2015-2016 off-season roster on PS4. There's the information on screen right there. I released this roster about 30 minutes after the draft last night, and man, the draft was absolutely crazy. We had a lot of big surprises, and I'll talk about that in another video. But in this video, I'm just going to go over my roster, go over some of the features as I did in a previous video, and talk about a few things that you can do when you get this roster to make it that much better, and talk about what I'm going to be doing with this roster, going forward into the off season. So, as you can see, we have 1,600 downloads already. That's crazy. I really appreciate everybody getting the word out there last night. That was really awesome to see a bunch of people actually waiting for the roster. I didn't even think we were going to come close to getting 1,600 within like the first, 10 hours or so, which is definitely pretty crazy, so I appreciate that. But before I go ahead and jump into the roster, again, I want to say a huge thank you to Pete for doing all the tendencies for these rosters. Go follow him on Twitter. He's a really good guy, and he did a huge part of this roster, editing all the tendencies to make the game play more realistically. I really appreciate it a lot, so definitely go follow him and tell him thank you. So we'll go ahead and jump into the roster right here. As you can see, first off, we got all the rookies on their teams, and I also edited attributes and ratings for a lot of these rookies, as you'll notice. So for some guys, for example, Okafor, I gave him a 77, but in my draft class, he was a 78. I changed ratings in the roster so it would be more realistic as to how NBA ready they are and how their potential stacks up. Because when I made my draft class, I had to actually rate guys somewhat based off of their draft stock, because if I rated a guy too low when he really actually had a high potential, like for example Kelly Oubre, I had to give him a 74 overall just because he was going to get drafted highly, but I had to drop him down to a 72 in this roster because he's really not super NBA ready, but he does still have a high potential. So as you can see, I dropped him to a 72, but his potential rating is pretty high. I gave him an 81 potential, so he's going to have a little bit more room to improve. Another example of this, kind of the opposite way, is Frank Kaminsky. I gave him a 73, I think, in my draft class, but I jumped him to a 75, and he could jump a little bit higher as I'll be updating this throughout the offseason, but he doesn't have as high potential because he's more of an NBA ready guy. Like Frank Kaminsky's going to be able to step in and contribute right away and get minutes, but his potential rating, I only gave him a 78 because he's kind of close to what he'll end up being, I think. So that's what I did with the attribute changes, and I'll be doing that, updating them more throughout the off season as well. Another huge thing that I did was the rookie contracts. This was actually a little bit more time consuming than I thought it would, or I thought it would be. But basically what I did was there's a rookie scale for how much each pick is slotted to make. So I went through and I gave every first round pick an accurate contract. Here's D'Angelo Russell. The normal NBA rookie contracts for first rounders are 2 years with a 2-year team option, so I gave it that, and then it has the accurate dollar amounts as well. That 4th year, if the team picks up the option, that's like a percentage increase over the 3rd year salary, so I made sure to calculate that and everything. So all these first round picks have accurate guaranteed contracts. And as we get like the official 100% numbers, because I think the rookies can actually negotiate their deal a little bit, they don't get that exact amount, but as we learn that stuff, I'll make sure to update it further. And then for second round picks, I didn't give them a guaranteed contract. I just gave them, a normal contract. So for example, Pat Connaughton, just a 1 year, $528,000, just gave him a 1 year contract. And then once he actually does get signed to a guaranteed contract, if he does get signed to one, I'll make sure to update that as well. So those were two really big things. As far as guys that I missed 3 players, 3 American players that I didn't add into the roster, and that was Marcus Thornton, who got drafted by the Celtics from William & Mary. I did not have him created, and that's kind of annoying because I was on the verge of creating him not too long ago, and I decided, I don't know, I don't see him on too many mock drafts, and I decided not to pull the trigger, and then he ended up getting drafted. So I didn't get him in there. I also didn't get, I can't remember the guy's name, but he went to UMass. I didn't get him in there. And I also didn't get Darren Hilliard. from Villanova, I think, and I didn't see him on one mock draft at all, and he got drafted early second round, which was just shocking to me. I couldn't even believe it. I was like, what in the world? How'd that guy even get taken? Because I just didn't see him anywhere. I didn't see anything about him, so that was really surprising. So I'll add those guys in this weekend. I've had a few people ask me about the Spurs draft picks. I did not add the Spurs draft picks to their roster because the players they drafted will not be coming over to the NBA this year, most likely. If anything changes, I will add them to the roster. Nikola Milutinov was their first round pick. He will not be coming over this year, most likely, but he is in the free agent pool right here. So if you do want to add him to a roster, go ahead and do it. He's in the free agency pool. Nikola Milutinov, you can add him to the Spurs if you like. I don't think I actually created their other international pick. I didn't know who that was actually, but just like a bunch of other international guys that won't be coming over this year, probably, they're in the free agent pool. Guillermo Hernan-Gomez, there he is right there. You can add him. Cedi Osman, he's in the free agent pool as well. And actually, I didn't even notice it, but Mohamedou Jete didn't get drafted last night, which was really surprising. He was getting some early second round buzz, so that was surprising that he didn't get drafted. But as far as the guys that didn't get drafted, like Robert Upshaw and Cliff Alexander and Quinn Cook and Christian Wood and those guys, they're all going to be in the free agents pool as well. Here's Michael Frazier, Jonathan Holmes, here's Cliff Alexander. They're all in the free agent pool. So if you want to add them to a team, you can go ahead and do that. And as free agency goes along and they do get signed, if they get signed, I'll make sure to add them as well. Here's one of the biggest things that I did with how, it's kind of hard to explain, but basically what I did was I had to release some guys. For example, LaMarcus Aldridge, I had to release him into free agency. Now, in a perfect world, I would have been able to release every unrestricted free agent in the roster, but you cannot do that. You have to keep 13 players on a team, but at the same time, you can't add more than 15 players to a team. So it was really annoying trying to fit in space for these rookies. So I had to release a lot of guys on teams that were unrestricted free agents and will be unrestricted free agents this year. I had to release them into the free agent pool to make room for the rookies, and obviously some of these second round picks might not even get signed, so I could end up removing them later once we find out more. But you know, some of these guys, I put a list together. I'll tweet out the list. I forgot to do it last night, but I will tweet out the list of the guys I released to make room for rookies. But the guys that I did release, I made sure they were going to be free agents, so they may not even re-sign with that team anyway. For example, Tariq Black, he didn't have any contract. He was an unrestricted free agent this upcoming season. And, you know, I'm assuming they'll re-sign him, so if they do, I'll make sure to sign him back. But as we get into free agency past July 1st and teams actually start negotiating with players, the roster will become a lot more realistic, because right now there's really no way around it, but it's not extremely balanced. Like, there's a lot of guys with 1-year contracts. You know, there's a lot of guys that really are unrestricted free agents, but they're still on the team, but I can't release them because I need to keep 13 on the team. So right now the roster is kind of all over the place, just because there's no way to make it, you know, as realistic as possible right now. So what I recommend you do, if you want to go ahead and start a MyLeague with this immediately, I recommend going ahead and trying to predict what's going to happen. So for example, before you start, sign LaMarcus Aldridge, you know, sign him back to the Blazers if you want to, sign him to San Antonio, make him go to the Lakers, anything like that. Just try to predict what's going to happen. Same with Monte Ellis, David West, Rondo, and some other guys, Aflalo, Thad Young. But I recommend that you go ahead and do that. And then if you want to move other guys around, like if you think Kevin Love's going to leave, go ahead and move him to a different team and switch up the roster that way, because there's really no way to make it ridiculously realistic. In a perfect world, as I said, I'd like to release all the unrestricted free agents and only have, you know, a certain number of guys, just a small amount of guys on the team. But, you know, obviously we cannot do that. But as we get into free agency, this will be updated extremely frequently with all the trades, all the signings, everything. I already got all these draft night trades updated. For example, Jaren Grant, he got traded with Kelly Oubre. Jaren Grant got drafted 19th by the Wizards, but that pick went to the Hawks. And then the Hawks drafted Oubre, he went to the Wizards, and then when the Hawks got Jaren Grant, they traded him to the Knicks for Tim Hardaway Jr. So I have all that stuff into this roster already, and as I said, more transactions will be updated just about, on a daily basis throughout the off season. So you guys want to stay up to date with the file. That's just about it that I can think of. Notable things, jersey numbers, I went ahead and gave guys jersey numbers. I made sure there were no duplicate jersey numbers. And I'll be updating these jersey numbers as we find out they're real ones. Like, for example, Karl Anthony Towns just tweeted out a picture like a few minutes ago asking if he was going to, asking the fans to choose if they wanted him to wear number 32 or number 12. And right now, number 12 is getting the most love, so I will be changing his number to number 12. But I believe somebody already has number 12 on the Timberwolves. See, Gary Neal, but he's probably an unrestricted free agent, so he's technically not on the team. So that goes back to the whole, not being able to release, enough guys. You got to keep 13 on a team. You can't have more than 15. So it's really kind of a sticky situation with that, but it'll all balance out once we get into free agency. Another thing I had a lot of people ask was what was the deal with Willie Cauley-Stein's hair. Basically, if you guys didn't notice, he had the Montrezl Harrell braids going last night at the draft, and in my opinion, the cornrows are the closest hairstyle that you can get to those braids. You could go with the long dreadlocks, but the long dreadlocks just, I really don't think that looks close. I think this is the closest thing, even though it doesn't really look like it at all. But that's just the lack of hairstyles that 2K gives us, and that's what I went with. If he changes his hair, hopefully he does, I'll try to get him back to a different hairstyle to make it look more realistic, but that's just what I had to go with as of right now. So that brings me to the end of this video. I want to thank you guys again for downloading the roster on draft night. Make sure you're staying up to date with my Twitter and here on YouTube, so you get the most recent updates with this thing, as well as all the recent transactions, because you'll be wanting to keep up to date with this thing all throughout the off season. It'll be a lot more realistic, and I'd recommend just using this roster at this point just to play quick games and just play with the rookies and make as many edits as you'd like to. But once we get into free agency, that's when I'd recommend that you start a MyLeague. I don't think you should start one yet with this roster, just because everything is all out of whack because free agency hasn't started. But as I said, there's really no way around that. So that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks again for downloading the roster last night. Thanks again to Pete for doing all the tendencies. Make sure to go follow him on Twitter and say thank you to him as well. Talk to you guys later.